A warm welcome to all of you. Many thanks for joining us today for this launch webinar of the COOLUP program's first MENA region cooling status report. It's great to see so many people joining us on the call today from across the region and across the globe. Thank you all for making the time to be here with us. And my name is Kristen Brand, and I'm the COOLUP program communications lead and managing consultant at Guidehouse. Before we dive in, I'd like to set the scene for today's discussion. So we know that the Middle East and North Africa region is warming at twice the global average, and it's no exception to the troubling trend of global warming. And across the globe, and particularly in a region so vulnerable to the impacts of climate change, cooling plays a critical part both as part of the problem and as part of the solution. But current information on sustainable cooling in the region varies and is incomplete, and there's no comprehensive regional cooling overview to date. So with this report, we seek to close this gap and provide a basis on which regional experts can share insights and information and lay the foundation for action on sustainable cooling across the region. So in today's webinar, we'll give you a sneak peek into this special report and let you see how you can be the first to access it. So let's take a look at today's agenda. So first, we'll have an overview of the COOLUP program and of the report by my colleague Nation. Then we'll hear some regional insights by our COOLUP team member, Mohammed Abdulhamid. Later, we'll bring in Nabil Shaheen of AHRI to share some insights as an expert based in the region. And after that, we'll have a short Mentimeter poll from the audience. And then we'll conclude with an open question and answer session and an outlook that includes some exciting updates from the program. So next, let's have a look at today's speakers. So for this discussion, I'm joined by Nation Surmeli Anak. Nation is the COOLUP Program Manager and Associate Director at Guidehouse. Nation focuses on aspects of sustainability in the built environment, both on the buildings and on the building products levels, with a strong multidisciplinary background. She currently leads the implementation of the COOLUP program in its 4 partner countries, Egypt, Jordan, Lebanon, and Turkey. Our next speaker is Dr. Mohammed Abdulhamid. He represents the Regional Center for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency as a partner organization of the COOLUP team. Mohammed has more than 15 years of experience in a multidisciplinary consultancy, plus academic and research experience in impact investing, development finance, and sustainable development. And last but certainly not least, our guest speaker from the Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration Institute, Nabil Shaheen. Nabil is the International Technical Director of AHRI and has 25 years of experience as an expert in rack technologies. He's currently based in the MENA region. So we'll tell you a little bit more about AHRI a bit later in the session. But without further ado, let's get started. So I will hand it over to Nation to kick off today's presentation.
Thank you, Kristen. And also a warm welcome to our attendees. Thanks for your time, for being with us today. I'll give a quick overview of the COOLUP program, and then I hope this will inform the discussion for the regional cooling status report, also for the rest of the hour we have. COOLUP program aims to accelerate the sustainable cooling in the MENA region and Turkey. By sustainable cooling, we mean the technologies that are energy efficient, certainly, but also operates with the lack of synthetic refrigerants that have ozone layer harming potential, and the technologies that are ready to be integrated with renewable energy supply. So the technologies we are going to be focusing on the program would ideally bring these 3 aspects together. And our program has a cross-segmental focus with refrigeration and air conditioning in commercial sector and air conditioning in residential buildings. With this cross-segmental focus, we have a holistic approach. Sustainability starts not with equipment and efficiency. Of course, it starts with the demand reduction firstly. So we also look at the measures that can be taken on the buildings or district or city level. And then we also focus, as I said, phase down of high global warming potential refrigerant, HFC phase down, and replacement and safe disposal of the equipment that is currently in the building stock. With improved cooling appliance operation, we hope to close the loop. And with this holistic approach, we aim to bring together different worlds, as it says, efficiency and refrigerant, so which basically is worked under climate change protection and ozone of the ozone layer. We understand that cooling is actually an area, a sector which is both socioeconomic and socio-technical aspects. So it needs a multi-layered approach. For that reason, our program is based on basically on 3 pillars. We understand that to accelerate this market transformation towards sustainable cooling technologies, it needs action from political, financial, and technical solutions side and the market and manufacturer side. So our program provides support for implementation of Paris Agreement and Kigali Amendment objectives to the partner countries of the KULA program. We also look into the acceleration of financial support by developing financial models with national and international financing institutes to make sure that sustainable cooling technologies also has a place in the financial support measures. On technical side, as I said, we are particularly focusing on natural refrigerants and energy efficient solutions. So we will be doing demonstration projects to show how the technical aspects, the potential of these technologies are available, and also we will work with the manufacturers to increase their awareness and facilitate their transition to manufacturing these technologies. Accompanying these 3 pillars, we will focus on capacity building. It does not only take the manufacturer, service providers, and a technical team, let's say, but also includes capacity building of financial experts in the banks and financing institutes, and also the policy stakeholders, the decision makers, who also have a say in developing regulations and implementation of those in the countries. Apart from this, we have very high focus on stakeholder dialogue. We understand this transformation cannot happen by solely implementing the right measures. It also needs all the stakeholders to be on the table and also develop this strategy together with them. So in our partner countries in KULAP, we bring together the stakeholders around the same table with our multidisciplinary approach among political, financial, and technical sides. We also try to create solutions with them, and going forward, we are going to also extend our stakeholder dialogue throughout the region. As a last step, dissemination is of course important. In addition to working in the countries, in our partner countries, we will make sure the learnings from each country is exchanged with others, but not only for the partner countries we have. As this event, we are also working on finding out the potentials, showing the benefits of sustainable cooling transition throughout the region and not on country level. So maybe it's now time to look at the next slide, which brings me to the partner countries of KULAP program. As Kristen mentioned, our partner countries in the program are currently Egypt, Jordan, Lebanon, and Turkey. We understand that they share some common challenges, but those are not the only countries in the region going through those challenges and also sharing the potential. So our aim is to make a tailored approach for these 4 countries, but also, as I said, make sure that the knowledge exchange is maintained among the partner countries, but also in the MENA region. Next slide, please. So with this aim in mind, we prepared our first MENA region cooling status report. As Kristen mentioned, we realized there's a gap of knowledge in the region which looks specifically and only at cooling, the challenges, the potentials, the mechanisms in place, and what can be developed further. So our report will be filling this gap, and it covers the whole MENA region. And it also is going to be the first of the series that we are going to publish in KULAP report, where we look into regulatory analysis, market status, finance market assessment, technology catalog, and cooling market prospects for our partner countries. Next slide, please. So it's our report is just published today, and with this launch event, we are happy to share the link also in the chat box. You can find the report and download it from our Cool Up program website. And please let us know your insights. We are happy to exchange further on the findings, because as I said, this is going to be one of the first of the series, and we are going to focus on different topics, specific topics throughout the years to make sure that we are also responding to the issues, potentials, and the trends that we observe in the region going forward. Next slide, please. A quick look into the report. So it starts with defining the importance of sustainable cooling in the MENA region, and then based on our 3-4 pillars we have in the Cool Up program, we look into the policy landscape, technology landscape, current market status, and the financing landscape in the region. We also provide some examples from the countries that are outside of Cool Up partner countries right now, to make sure that we are embracing the whole regional knowledge, and also making sure that the knowledge transfer in the MENA region is not limited to a couple of countries. So we are happy to share it with you today, and I will be delighted to follow the discussions today for the rest of the webinar. And I hand over back to Kristen.
Great, thank you so much, Nation. Let's actually jump right over to Mohammed to share some insights directly from the report. Over to you, Mohammed.
Thank you, Kristen, for the introduction. Thank you, Nation, for the nice presentation. In these coming few slides, we are going to discuss a brief points and insights about the regional status of the sustainable cooling in the region in terms of the ratification of Kigali's Amendment, the national determined contribution of the MENA region countries, and if they are considering or not the cooling specific targets, and a brief overview of the market volume and export volumes among countries. Additionally, we are gonna show you what are the expectations of the future growth rates of the RAC sector in the MENA region, and what is the importance of using sustainable cooling technologies in our region in specific. Next slide, please. So in this slide, you are going to show the overview of Kigali Amendment ratification status of the MENA region. As you know, Kigali Amendment is a binding agreement. So each country at some point of time should ratify the adoption of Kigali Amendment. You will find here our countries, the MENA region countries. We have 21 countries. All these countries are in different stages of the ratification of the adoption of the Kigali Amendment to the Montreal Protocol. Firstly, we will find that the MENA region countries are categorized either under Group 1 or Group 2, depending on the phase year of calculating the reduction, as well as the phase down implementation schedule of HFCs. Kigali Amendment aims at, as all of you know, to reduce the production and consumption of HFCs. So all of our countries are in different stages of the ratification process. We have only 6 countries out of these 21 countries are already ratified the Kigali Amendment. These countries are Jordan, Lebanon, Morocco, Syria, Tunisia, and Turkey. By the way, all these countries started to ratify the amendment from 2019 till 2022. Next slide, please. If you are looking to the national determined contributions of our countries, the national determined contributions are not a binding agreement. They are rather formulate the country's efforts towards climate change, how they are going to set goals related to climate mitigation and climate adaptation to achieve the efforts and goals of Paris Agreement. The national determined contributions of our MENA region countries are typically include general goals, generic targets on how these countries are planning to improve and rationalize the use of energy sources to eliminate the negative environmental impacts of development and to achieve realistic GHG emission reduction levels. So Typically, we do not find any indices that include cooling specific targets in our region, except for few countries. However, these indices include general targets that are related to ozone depleting potentials and ESCs, but cooling specific targets in a specific with specific emphasis on it within the national determined contribution, we cannot find this. However, it is worth mentioning that considering the cooling specific targets in indices in our countries is very important for several reasons. Because our countries are expecting to face a severe increase in temperatures, accordingly, the demand for cooling loads and cooling technologies will continue to grow and continue to increase in the future. So we should include cooling specific target in our indices to formulate efforts towards reducing the negative environmental impact associated with these technologies. Next slide, please. As we mentioned, the Iraq sector in the MENA region will continue to grow because we are going to face severe temperature increase in the future. Additionally, the cooling demand will continue to increase and grow, as well as we are seeing now the urbanization rates and development plans of all the countries in the MENA region are growing. So population are growing, development increasing. So the need for cooling technologies, the need for buildings are also increasing. Hence, the demands for cooling technologies will continue to increase in the future. We could find now many countries in the MENA region started to adopt the district cooling plant within their plans to build a new generation 4 cities, similar to Egypt, by the way. Egypt is planning to construct a wholly new administrative capital to the country. So we are going to see a huge development in the desert, similar to other countries in the MENA region. So demanding and in line with the development plans, the urbanization rate, the technological advancements, the MENA region will continue to use and depend on sustainable cooling technologies. It is mandatory to consider sustainability when designing the new buildings and designing the new districts, because the Iraq sector refrigeration and air conditioning technologies will represent a significant energy consumer within this sector compared to the other economic activities. So the market will continue to grow. We should depend and rely and consider and put the framework for using sustainable cooling technologies within our own buildings and communities. Next slide, please. If we are going to have a brief overview of the market, we will find that nearly in 2018, the total market size of refrigeration and air conditioning technologies in our countries in terms of number of sold units and the cost of sold units was nearly 8 billion euros in 2018, as we mentioned, and the growth rate are expecting to be 5% on a yearly basis. Line shares, most of 75% of this market volume are for Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Turkey, Qatar, Egypt, and Oman. It is worth mentioning that United Arab Emirates itself consider one of the major exporters of rack technologies to the other countries in the MENA region. Nearly in 2020, the total export volume of the United Arab Emirates of rack technologies has reached nearly 624 million euros, mainly to countries in the MENA region that are Saudi Arabia, Iraq, and Oman, and Iran. So we are going to see a good potential for countries in the MENA region to also manufacture and assemble high efficient technologies and to export these technologies to nearby countries in the MENA region. Next slide, please. Just to give a few examples, or one example actually, for projects here in the region that are considering and adopting sustainable cooling technologies within their operations. We will find Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates and Egypt. Here we are going to focus on an example, successful project, mega project actually in Saudi Arabia, which is KAUST, King Abdullah University of Science and Technology. This university campus is huge, and actually I had the chance to work in the design team that's working in this project. This project, during even starting During the inception phase, the design team, the owner, the government of Saudi Arabia was intending to build this project as a green, to be a landmark for university campuses all over the world. This project considered a lot of attributes that will contribute towards its sustainability and green emissions and reducing the emissions and reducing the energy consumption. Brief key facts about this project. The owner of this project, it is owned and managed by a board of trustees. It was designed by an international design firm, HOK Architects. The main contractor was Aramco. The total construction cost of this campus was nearly $20 billion as an endowment from the royal family in Saudi Arabia. This project includes a lot of energy conservation measures, such as heat recovery and solar towers. By the way, the whole campus is a LEED Platinum. It is one of the first LEED projects in the region. The total energy savings, as calculated and achieved and verified compared to a baseline, has reached on an annual basis more than 130,000 megawatt hours per year, which is corresponding to GHG reduction that is nearly 85,000 tons of carbon dioxide per year. Next slide, please. As mentioned, this project is one of the largest university campuses in the world. It is a nearly built-up area of 600,000 square meters. It includes a lot of energy measures, such as LED lighting, solar thermal, and solar PV. If we are considering in specific, and this is our focus of today's webinar, and the sustainable cooling, the innovative cooling technologies used in this building relied significantly on a heat recovery to cool the outdoor fresh air before entering the building by making a system that could recover heat from the cooled exhaust air from this building with the indoor fresh air, just to achieve significant energy savings. As we know, Saudi Arabia characterized by its hot and dry weather. So using these innovative recovery units, the overall green attributes of the project are favored to this recovery system. Additionally, other green attributes that are related to water consumption and VRF chillers and a very modern and very efficient district cooling plant serving the whole campus should also be considered one of the as a main reasons for this campus to be green landmark for university campuses and school buildings all over the region. Thank you. Thank you, Kristen. The floor back to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Mohammed. Thank you for this food for thought and insights from the report. I hope everyone is excited to download the report and dive in after seeing this sneak peek. Also, just a short reminder before we continue to please go ahead and post any questions you may have in the question function on GoToWebinar, and we'll be happy to pick those up later on in the presentation. So at this point, we've really only scratched the surface of the insights from the regional report, but there's much more. So let's see what else our regional experts have to say. I would ask Nabil to join me on screen for a couple of questions. As mentioned, Nabil is the technical director of the Air Conditioning, Heating and Refrigeration Institute, which is a trade association representing manufacturers of the heating, ventilation, air conditioning, refrigeration, and water heating equipment in the global industry. They have over 300 member companies and produce more than 90% of the residential and commercial air conditioning, heating, water heating, and commercial refrigeration equipment made in North America, but are also active in the MENA region. So they have certification programs, standards, advocacy, and other activities helping to save energy, improve productivity, and ensure a better environment. So let's hear more from Nabil, though. Welcome, Nabil. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Kristen. Thank you for having me on this webinar, and good morning, good afternoon to our attendees. Can you hear me well?
We can. Thank you.
Okay.
Great. And so before we dive into your thoughts on the region, perhaps you could tell us a little bit more about AHRI and what they're doing in the region.
Okay, great. First of all, it's my pleasure to be working with CoolUp, as we both share a lot of the same great goals, sustainable cooling being on top of the list, of course. And as Christian mentioned, the HRI is a trade association representing manufacturers of HVAC and water heating equipment within the global industry. Our members basically produce over 90% of the product that are sold in the market. We have over 140 HVAC internationally recognized performance and rating standards and guidelines. We also have certification programs that are used by both commercial and regulatory sectors. And we conduct various researches on HVAC technologies, including future refrigerants, and have training programs related to HVAC. We are now active in the MENA region. We have an office which is relatively new, but we have always been in touch, of course, with the MENA governments due to the importance of cooling sector in this region. Our Dubai-based team is working with the industry to address increasing policy and regulatory requirements and demand for HRI standards and certification programs in this Arabian Gulf. So we are involved with the GCC or Gulf Cooperation Council countries such as Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and in the Levant area with Lebanon, Jordan, Turkey, and also we are going to be in close discussion or communication with North Africa countries like Egypt, Algeria, Morocco, and Tunisia, to name a few.
Great, thanks for that overview. So maybe you could tell us a little bit more about your position as a global industry player in the global cooling market. So the status of sustainable cooling and what you think the market will look like in 5 to 10 years in the region. So sorry, that's a lot to throw at you, but
it's okay. In terms of cooling products such as air conditioners, this region has a unique requirement, as everyone knows. And so the design of an air conditioner that comes to this region is always going to be different than the air conditioners that are sold in the rest of the world. The reason is this region, as we all know, can be hot. I mean, the temperature here can, in many areas in this region, can reach up to 52 degrees Celsius in the shade, so which feels much hotter in some areas. So we usually joke and say in the GCC countries, we have 2 seasons. We have hot season and hotter season. So the capacity or the tonnage of an air conditioner is usually evaluated or measured at high temperature. For example, in most of the GCC countries, air conditioners capacity or tonnage is measured at 46 degrees C. In Kuwait, for example, it's measured at 48 degrees C. And even in countries like Egypt, a lot of consultants like to spec their units at 40 degrees or higher, 41, 42 degrees. So most companies that wants to market or sell in this region have to design a special high ambient product, including, of course, the local manufacturers, which we have many of those here. For example, in Saudi, we have 3 major manufacturers and many international manufacturers with factories set up there. We have a couple in UAE. We have also manufacturers in Kuwait, Jordan, and Egypt. Several of those, mid to small size also manufacturers. And it's worth mentioning here that when MENA governments come up with new regulations or standards, they are usually sensitive to the needs of the local manufacturers. So back to your question about the next 5 to 10 years, I think as the technology is advancing and we are now moving more towards product utilizing elements like inverter technology, although local manufacturers here are still a bit limited when it comes to these new technologies, they are striving to quickly, of course, adapt and adopt. So we see a shift towards more highly energy efficient product that employs, for example, variable speed motors, advanced control systems, replacing the conventional fixed speed, simple control systems. And if you look at the latest, for example, International Energy Agency report on the Middle East, it's stated that currently there are 60 million air conditioning units installed in the Middle East. A lot of them, of course, in the GCC region. And that number is forecasted to grow to 210 million by 2050. So that's a huge increase, considering that in countries like Saudi Arabia, the average energy efficiency purchase air condition is usually close to the minimum, even though the consumers have the opportunity to buy more highly efficient systems from their local market. Some governments are realizing that, and realizing the need to work more on the consumer awareness, which is why they're beginning to implement energy efficiency awareness programs, and also gradually raising the minimum energy efficiency requirements in their countries. We're also noticing that both manufacturers and governments are promoting, for example, green technologies or environmentally friendly products. So, as consumers now are becoming more educated and aware more than ever about, the importance of these topics due to the abundance, of course, of various social media and communication channels that covers things like global warming and pollution. So this is, working together well now.
Great. Yeah, exactly. And raising awareness, that's exactly, that's exactly what the Cool Up program is doing also here today. So that's great to hear. And for maybe another question, let's bring Mohammed back. So Mohammed, if you'll join us on screen, maybe you could say a couple words about how the rack market is developing in terms of sustainability across the region. Anything else you can add there?
Actually, building on what Nabil said, we currently seeing that the awareness among consultants, owner, project developer is increasing towards sustainability, especially and in line with the recent price hikes of electricity. We are seeing all these stakeholders are thinking about sustainable cooling technologies, especially that cooling technologies itself represent a huge or lion shares of electricity consumption in commercial and institutional buildings. So all these stakeholders are trying to think and taking concrete steps towards sustainability. This is from the design and inception perspective of stakeholders, engineering firms, design firms, developers. If you are gonna look at the government itself, the governments also are trying to promote and to increase the market uptake of sustainable technologies. For example, we have few countries, by the way, in the MENA region, started to think how to develop the ESCO, energy service companies business in the market. Among these countries are Egypt and Morocco, for example. So we believe that the first super ESCOs or the first governmental ESCO companies will try to focus on public buildings and the cooling systems used in these buildings, even if they are planning to retrofit the existing inefficient technologies, or whether they are planning to adopt such sustainable technologies in the new districts and communities. We are now seeing several countries started to issue their specific codes for buildings, for district cooling. So the need, the political will, the technical expertise could be considered existing. However, concrete steps are needed in the future. From my point of view, if we allowed an innovative financing schemes of such cooling technologies, this will boost the market towards sustainable technologies more than we could imagine. For example, we have here in our countries a lot of donors, a lot of financial institutions that are supporting energy efficiency and renewable energy, but we cannot find specific programs that are tailored to sustainable cooling technologies. For example, if we have programs that are tailored specifically to domestic customers who are willing to purchase and buy efficient white goods, efficient ECs, efficient cooling technologies, this will lead to a significant market uptake of sustainable technologies. So to recap, sustainable technologies are evolving. There is a political will, there is an awareness, there is a need. However, we have some barriers. We need innovative financing schemes. We need some support from the governments, from the tax authorities, from the customs to allow the import of specific technologies, for example, such as inverters for domestic ACs, to allow the local assemblers here in Egypt to sell efficient ACs with inverters at a comparable cost to other prevailing fixed speed ACs, for example. This is my point of view. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mohammed. Indeed, we have much more information about the financing landscape in the report as well. So good to check out that chapter. But at this point, I'd like to zoom in on natural refrigerants. So going back to Nabil, what do you see as the drivers for these in the region, and what does the future look like for natural refrigerants?
Okay. Currently, there's not much know-how when it comes to new refrigerants in this region. Of course, HRI is doing a lot of research on new refrigerants, including high ambient temperature effects on new refrigerant candidates, which is important for this region. These researches are combined effort between manufacturers, testing bodies, governments, academia, and others. We have included in the past regional manufacturers to specifically look at, again, the effect of high ambient on refrigerants. One important element for local manufacturers is how the new refrigerant, whether it's natural or other, that's being adopted is going to behave under high ambient again conditions, because the local conditions are different than the rest of the world, as I mentioned earlier. For some of these new refrigerant at high ambient condition, the capacity and efficiency sometimes may drop. So they have to take that into consideration. For example, when the switch was made from R22 to R14A in this region, R22 was a better refrigerant when it came to high ambient conditions than R14A. So this is one aspect that is important for them. The other thing is that the region is in a kind of a wait and monitor mode to see where the US and Europe are going to head in terms of new refrigerants, especially when it comes to establishing global warming potential levels. As we all know, natural refrigerants have some of the lowest global warming rating. So the wait and see approach is also for what the major global manufacturers will adopt, because usually they will lead in that direction of the new refrigerant, as well as some of the HVAC major component suppliers. For example, compressors manufacturers have a say in which refrigerants will have compressors developed and available for all the types and sizes of air conditioners. So of course, no one in this region manufacture their own compressors, so they have to be purchasing from them. Currently, there's not much emphasis on natural refrigerant, as this is influenced by economics and other factors. But the main concern, again, is how does the new refrigerant behave in high ambient condition? Of course, other factors must also be considered when it comes to choosing a new refrigerant, such as safety, flammability, toxicity, cost, availability, efficiency, capacity, system pressure, and also practicality. How will the natural refrigerants such as propane, for example, which is starting to gain some grounds in China and some countries in Europe like Germany, how will this be adopted or used in this region will remain to be seen. I'd like to stay optimistic on that.
Great. Yes, so we have our work cut out for us, but exactly, I think there is definitely hope, and that's what CoolUp aims to do, really accelerate the uptake of natural refrigerants in the region. So it's good to hear. And for this last question, I'd like to bring Nation onto the screen with us. So Nation, could you tell us a little bit more about maybe what CoolUp is doing to capitalize on these opportunities for sustainable cooling in the region, and if you have any comments on any of the previous questions?
Yeah, sure.
Floor
Thanks,
is yours.
Kristen. Yeah, I think Nabil's comments were very informative and very important. So it is indeed a new technology that we are trying to focus and accelerate in CoolUp, but we also see a lot of potentials. Maybe to start with the global political agenda, we see that with the Kigali Amendment and Montreal Protocol, the agenda is pretty clear, and it's also being acknowledged and followed up by MENA region countries as well. So we are seeing increasing number of MENA countries who are also ratifying Kigali Amendment. So this is going to get more and more emphasis on national regulation, but also on the political agenda. What we also realized in the last year of CoolUp is many of these technologies or use of natural refrigerants are available. Indeed, as Nabil mentioned, there is research still to be done, bringing together laboratories, manufacturers, service providers, but this has never been a stopper for new technologies to emerge. It is the natural trend of any new technology to gain ground, and we are really happy to see these efforts are taking place and increasingly speeding up. But of course, there are some barriers, as also Mohammed mentioned. One of the biggest ones are the awareness. So it's really important to make sure that the existing technologies or the availability of technologies are emphasized and the potentials are really discussed in the various areas that we have. And that's what we are aiming to do in KULAP. Supported by increased technical capacity, I think that's really important to make sure that both the end users and the manufacturers, so the whole supply chain, is confident that these technologies can be used. And we are going to also try to show those with real case examples in our demonstration projects in the coming years in KULAP, which we will implement directly in one of our partner countries. What we also see, and we in KULAP we want to address, is the lack of a platform where several different stakeholders come together, because as I said, it's not enough to do only policy and regulation, not only finance. It's also important to bring in laboratories, research and development into the picture. And within KULAP, this is one of our major aims, to bring every stakeholder around the table and make sure this market transformation pathway is discussed with several perspectives, because it's also important to maintain the market competitiveness of every company. And there is also a lot of potential to switch to natural refrigerants for the regional manufacturers and the national manufacturers to be front runners and gain market competitiveness with being technology front runners in this aspect. So I think there's a lot to tap in. We understand this is a big undertaking in KULAP, but we are also a large consortium, and with cooperation with organizations like AHRI, and our consortium partners and many other NGOs in the region and in the countries, I think this is just a nice adventure to take, and it's the right time to take.
Great, thank you, Nation. So at this point, I think we can switch to the Mentimeter. We'd like to briefly collect some feedback from the audience before we dive into a brief Q&A. So you can use this time to log into Mentimeter and also think about any questions you would like to pose to our panelists. So you can click on the link in the chat window or follow the instructions on the screen. You can use your mobile device or the browser on your computer. So we'll give everybody a minute to log in and switch. All right, so let's jump over to the first question on Mentimeter. I can see we already have some responses. It's great. So the question here would be to rank the following dimensions according to their importance in terms of upscaling sustainable cooling in the region. So here, as we've talked about on several occasions now, we have the policy and regulatory framework, the financing options and availability, these technological advancements, and otherwise market maturity and market mechanisms. So yeah, but let's wait for some more responses to see what the overall consensus is. Again, you can also see the information at the top of the screen to access the poll, so www.menti.com and the code that you see there. But indeed, it looks like policy and the regulatory framework, along with the financing options and availability, appear to be some of the key dimensions for advancing sustainable cooling across the region. Let's see. Okay, we'll give everybody just one more minute. Good. I think we can go to the next question here. So here you can rate the following statements on a scale from low to high. So this is all about natural refrigerants. So your awareness, willingness to use them, and the potentials of natural refrigerants. Here we'll give everybody a minute to answer. So Nation, Nabil, Mohammed, feel free to jump in as well.
Oh, this is really interesting to see, especially when we are talking about low awareness. But of course, our group here is a selected set, so it may be a bit biased. Still good to see the answers and the change.
And hopefully in a year or so, we would see a different response to this question.
Well, it's good to see the willingness to use natural refrigerants is towards high of the spectrum. Comes with the awareness, of course.
Indeed.
But obviously, there is still room to make sure that the potentials are also discussed and disseminated and clarified.
Yeah, great. Good. I think we have a nice response rate. So thank you all for providing your input to these questions. Let's maybe spend then the remainder of our time now. Let's say maybe another 5 minutes answering questions from the audience. So as mentioned, please don't be shy. Post your questions in the Q&A window, and we will do our best to answer them. But let's see, we can wait for some questions to come in. But otherwise, maybe a question to Nabil. We also asked Mohammed about the sustainability in the rack market. You know, have we left anything out? Are there any important developments that you're seeing that we haven't mentioned here today?
Yeah, one factor that's affecting sustainability is, as you know, some of the countries in the MENA region have subsidies on electricity, and those are being lifted by most of these governments. So consumers and end users are feeling the effect of high cost of electricity to run their air conditioners, and how energy efficient product can help them, save huge amounts of money, and also, of course, help the environment at the same time. So in the air conditioning market, we see, again, a big push towards inverter technology because inverter can save a lot of money throughout the season. So because unlike Europe, the market share for variable speed motors and inverter technology in MENA region is still kind of relatively low, around 25% or less. But this is gaining grounds now. So a lot of the leading manufacturers are heavily advertising the benefits of inverter technology, and products, of course, like VRF is gaining also grounds and market share in the past years. And also, as Mohammed mentioned, this region is known for being a leader in sustainable district cooling projects, especially in countries like UAE. So district cooling, I think, is expected to continue to gain ground and spread to more countries in the region. So sustainable projects, this also was covered a bit by Mohammed, are beginning to be included in those regions, as we're seeing or noticing increased activities in green building organization, licensing more and more buildings in both the residential and commercial sectors. And as Mohammed mentioned, a new trend now is energy service companies, or ESCOs. They're being established and are financing multiple projects in the region that have already yielded a huge reduction in power consumptions, for example, in UAE, Saudi Arabia, Egypt. And for those who are not familiar with these kind of energy service companies, they're mainly focused on replacing outdated HVAC equipment or and lighting system with LED, and paying for the cost of equipment from the saving from the difference in electricity consumption. So a lot of activities on sustainability, and this comes again with awareness, and of course the increase in oil prices is not helping, because that's also increasing electricity. So everybody's feeling it, and everybody's looking for high efficient products.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks for that. Also, your point about district cooling, who knows, that might be the focus of an upcoming regional report. We'll have to see. And also, speaking of the report here, Mohammed, we know that it's the first of its kind in the MENA region. So how do you think it can really contribute to advancing the topic?
Actually, this is our first report, and it includes a lot of macroscopic insights about sustainable cooling in the MENA region at all, not only specific countries. And I believe the next versions or the next issues of this report will tackle specific areas, specific points. Maybe we'll focus on specific technical advancements that are needed or required by our countries to consider specific technologies, either in specific cooling or the domestic or the industrial or the commercial refrigeration systems. So I believe this report and this platform in general will provide very useful insights to all stakeholders, will give a summary, an overview of what is going on in the MENA region, what are the status of sustainable cooling, and it will help to streamline the efforts and to introduce new ideas and to present the feedback from different stakeholders, from different experts, from different organizations about the future of the sustainability in our region. And I believe the next two versions, especially we have COP27 will be here in Egypt, COP28 will be in Abu Dhabi in Emirates. So the region will continue to lead the global momentum of sustainable cooling. And I believe next versions or next issues of this report will include very interesting information, very useful insights, and it will be mandatory to any development organization that are planning to promote or to work on sustainable cooling technologies in our countries.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Mohammed. Good points about the upcoming two COPs, which are definitely on our radar as in the COOLA program. And it looks like we have maybe one last question here of a different nature for nation here. What if somebody's interested in joining the COOLUP program? What if their country is not already part of COOLUP?
Yeah, great question. Thanks. We are really happy that we are already receiving these interests from country governments. We are working with 2 additional countries right now to try and see how we can also have them in COOLUP program. And we are happy to see other collaboration opportunities. Right now, as every program, we have a clear structure. Number of countries are defined with our funding organization, with IKI. So at this moment, we really need to look what are the potentials, and also happy to see what extra funding and work streamlines we can gather for the other interested countries. So please do let us know if you are willing to work with COOLUP. We are happy to see what opportunities there may be. And it's also really great to work in MENA region, because the region brings in it has a peculiar characteristic. As Nabil said, they can monitor what's happening in US and Europe, but also has the opportunity to leapfrog, to cut some of the intermediary steps that Europe and US has gone through, and really jump to the next level where now Europe is trying to get. And that's what we are trying to do in COOLUP, and happy to support also all interested countries by seeing how we can extend the capacities of the program and the funding.
Great. So I think we are almost at the top of the hour. So thanks to all of our panelists, and I think we'll wrap it up now. So I would like to first reiterate where you can access the report. You can go to the knowledge base on the COOLUP website and search for reports, or follow the link in the chat window, which will take you right to it. So we encourage you to download the report, read it, share it across your network. And on the next slide here, you can see how to reach us, how to get in touch with us. Of course, on our COOLUP website, you can also find us on Twitter and YouTube, where we will post the recording of this webinar for those who couldn't make it today. And if you haven't already done so, we would encourage you to sign up for the COOLUP newsletter. It's really the best way to stay engaged and receive regular updates on our activities and events. And actually, speaking of activities and events, CoolUp, as Nation mentioned earlier, has several exciting reports and developments coming up over the course of the rest of the year. So some reports focusing on the policy landscape, the market status, the financing landscape of our partner countries, Egypt, Jordan, Lebanon, and Turkey. And we'll also be publishing a catalog of sustainable cooling technologies. So stay tuned. There's much more to come. And I think also Nabil has another activity coming up, an announcement for the group.
We have a joint webinar with ASHRAE today at 4 p.m. Dubai time. It's a virtual event on the topic of raising the bar of energy efficiency in high ambient temperature regions. We will cover topics like ASHRAE 90.1. We'll also be covering the importance of certification, surveillance, and monitoring products that are being sold in this region. It's not too late, and I can post a link here in the chat if anybody is interested to join.
Great. Yes, the link is in the chat. So do sign up. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. So again, a warm thank you to all of our panelists, our speakers for being here with us today, and for all of you, our audience, for joining us. You can find everyone's contact information on the screen, so do feel free to reach out to us. And lastly, thank you again for your input and engagement in our webinar, and we look forward to seeing you at the next CoolUp event. Thank you.